Introducing Oakley Meta Vanguard, the new performance AI glasses designed for athletes with an action-ready ultra-wide camera, powerful open-ear speakers, and built-in Meta AI that syncs with your Garmin devices for real-time insights while you train. Take your performance to the next level with Oakley Meta Vanguard. Athletic intelligence is here. Learn more on meta.com.
Thursday Night Football is on, and it's only on Prime Video.
That's going to be caught.
This week, the Minnesota Vikings head west to face the Los Angeles Chargers.
They'll take that all day.
Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with football's best party. TNF Tonight, presented by Verizon. Not a Prime member? Not a problem. Simply sign up for a 30-day free trial. It's the Vikings and the Chargers, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on Prime Video. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to another live edition of Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means, that's Stefan Krajisnik, and that is Andrew Gillis. And you can't see him, but producer Brennan is also with us, helping us be better at our jobs every single day, because if not, then we'll be worse at our jobs. It's another live show. This week, as we do every single week, we do big picture stuff on the live show. This show is also in your feeds on Thursday mornings if you can't get it. But try to join us every week. We have a good time here. This week, we are discussing Ohio State's 2024 National Championship roster and comparing it to this 2025 roster. And it's the basis of it is everybody's been asking this question, but Jeremiah Smith went on a CBS interview after Ohio State's 34-0 win over Wisconsin. And he said that he thinks this team is better than last year's team. And so what we're going to try to do here is, you can maybe hear my cat in the background yelling because she knows I'm working now. We're going to compare them. We're going to break it down. There's going to be big picture stuff. There's going to be position by position breakdowns. We're going to look at everything we can possibly look at to come to a conclusion of which team we think is actually the better football team. We even got our texters involved. 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. There was a survey going around. It was pretty tedious, but it's literally this or that the entire time. This or that. This or that. This or that. And most of them, I think, are pretty slanted one way or the other. But there's one result to a question that I thought was objectively hilarious. And I almost am like, all right, would y'all have thought this 2 weeks ago? Would y'all have thought this 6 months ago? And so we'll get to that in a little bit. But I do want to start with Ohio State, obviously, last year, 14-2 wins a national championship. Through 7 games, they were 6-1 through 7 games. And also, Ohio State this year, through 7 games, is 7-0. Here's the starting lineups, and I probably should have sent all this stuff to producer Brennan, but listen, we're learning along the way, so I'm not just reading off names. But we'll start on the offensive side of the ball, and here are the starting 22s for both of these teams through 7 games. And I did include Josh Simmons. There were some texters who was like, how can you include Josh Simmons? Because at this point in the season, he was still part of things. He had just gotten hurt against Oregon. But getting to the second bye week, we had not seen a game where somebody else other than Josh Simmons had started at left tackle, and we're going off original starting lineups to make this easy, because if not on the offensive line, we're going to go, okay, well, are you comparing it to this variation of the offensive line or that variation? Day one starters. Quarterbacks, Will Howard and Julian Sand. Running backs, Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. And then for 2025, have Bo Jackson, James Peoples, and CJ Donaldson right now, because they have been consistent, and Isaiah West has not necessarily been in the mix. Wide receivers, JJ at X for both teams, Nell at Z for both teams, Emeka at slot for 24, and Brandon Ennis at slot for 25. The tight ends, G. Scott and Will Kazmarek for 24. 2025, it's Will Kazmarek and Max Clare. And then the offensive lines from left to right, 24, Josh Simmons, Donovan Jackson, Seth McLaughlin, Tegra Shabola, Josh Fryer. 25, Austin Cervell, Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinsman, Tegra Shabola, and Phillip Daniels. So we'll start on the offensive side of things, Stefan, and I guess we could just start at quarterback. Who's the better quarterback, Julian Sand or Will Howard?
Like, this might sound crazy to some, maybe some will agree, I don't think it's close. I
Mm.
think it's Julian saying pretty easily. Like the one thing where Will Howard had kind of over any quarterback to come through Ohio State was his accuracy, right? He completed it was 73% of his passes, which was a program record.
Yep.
And that's impressive considering, the quarterbacks, especially recently, under Day's tenure that have come through. And Julian Sayed said, okay, what about 80%? Literally took the record and said, I'll add 7% to it, which is just ridiculous to think about. I think his accuracy, paired with, I think he's a better deep ball thrower than Will Howard. I think you could definitely make a case that Will Howard is, has more mobility and has more of a rushing was more of a rushing threat than Julian Sayin is. But if we're talking, quarterback, pure passer, Julian Sayin checks off just about every box there is. So I loved covering Will Howard. Will Howard was awesome, and he led Ohio State to a national title. Will Howard is not as good of a quarterback as Julian Sayin is.
Is this pretty foregone conclusion here, Andrew? Like, I don't even, do we need to spend a bunch of time talking about this?
Well, we could spend a bunch of time on Buckeye Talk talking about anything, so I don't want to
but do we
that.
need to do it, though,
What I would say is, no, it's not close. Yes, it's a foregone conclusion. But I do just think the concept of Ohio State has a national championship winning quarterback. And I mean, this isn't part of the conversation, but compare him to other quarterbacks of this last decade or so. And I'm not sure how highly he ranks in that conversation. And this is just another one, right? Where it's Julian saying, I got grief last year for kind of saying hey, Will Howard isn't throwing the ball this well, or he's not doing that well. And, if that last year from Will Howard was an A, then what is this, right? From, Julian saying to me has been just, there have been plays that he has made that I don't think Will Howard could reach into his bag and pull out at any point, right? There have been that throw to Innis against Wisconsin was unbelievable. I think it was the Minnesota game where he just knew he was going to get drilled. He made a throw across the middle of the field. There are NFL level throws that Julian Sayin is making. And of course, Will Howard's an NFL quarterback, but there's levels to this. Julian Sayin looks like a first round pick. Will Howard was not. To me, it just wasn't all that close when I looked at it. This was one of the ones that was just kind of easier for me. And I was just kind of looking for, eye test, whatever that kind of proves my point. And I don't think I really need a ton.
If Julian Sayin had Will Howard's stature, or if Will Howard had Julian Sayin's arm talent, it would be undoubted first overall pick, I think.
Does Ohio State lose a game last year if Julian Sayin's a starting quarterback? And not last year's Julian. We're saying this version of, because the answer is no, because he did not win the starting quarterback job.
Right.
If you drop this version of Julian Sayin, who again is completing 80% of his passes, 1,872 yards and 19 touchdowns, if you drop that kid into last year's roster with that offense, does Ohio State lose a game?
It's tough because what Julian Sayin does better is a lot in the passing game. That game at Oregon, I don't know how much of it was a result of Will Howard not making throws.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough because that Oregon game felt so much like there was Quinshon's fumble. There was, the penalty on Jeremiah Smith. There was obviously the play at the very end of the game where I don't know. What is Julian, Will Howard, if he slides a second earlier, they might win the game. What does Julian Sayin do on that? Does he even get them into field goal range without the mobility? It's hard to tell. So I'd probably say they probably still lose that game at Oregon. And then, how many passes would he be allowed to throw against Michigan? That's my question to you. Shout out Mitchell Melton. Shout out Mitchell Melton and Bill Rabinowitz.
They kept the chains on Julian Sayin this year. And, what would they have done last year against Michigan? So, yeah, I think Stefan's right. I actually think you could make a case that it's a better 10-2. I don't know if you have some trickier spots against a Nebraska. I'm not sure if they're only scoring 21 and only having 285 yards of offense against Nebraska in a 21-17 win. I'm not sure if, that Iowa game is 7-0. I think it was at halftime and they win 35-7. And I think you might have a little bit more explosiveness, but I struggled to see where Will Howard could have been improved upon, like Stefan was saying, against Oregon. And then the Michigan thing, that was just out of everybody's hands for a myriad of different reasons. So it's hard to say, well, they would have let him sling it around, but not Will, where Will was a fifth-year quarterback, and he was a veteran quarterback who had done it all year, and then they took the ball at his hand.
To be fair, Ohio State was up 7-3 at halftime. this year against Washington. Given what we've seen from this Washington team since that game, I think that Iowa team last year was as good as this year's Washington team. Now, probably flip it, right? I think Washington's better on offense, but Iowa's better on defense last year. But both of your points are probably valid here. Is Julian going to be allowed to throw the ball or nah? Because if no, then 13-10. If yes, then anything's possible.
Off of that, funny conversation where you could definitely flip it in our face is, does Ohio State keep the training wheels on if it has a fifth-year quarterback when it goes to Washington? If Will Howard is the quarterback for that game at Washington, they probably let it rip as opposed to, kind of a safer approach they took with Julian saying. So there's guardrails up that probably, throw some caveats into this conversation, but it's an interesting one to have.
They're probably even more methodical because they can be. This year, it's kind of hindsight. They could be slow like that because, the defense is good. We knew the defense was good last year. We knew the offense had a bunch of veterans. That would literally be 2018 Trevor Lawrence, where it's like you have an awesome quarterback, but you can baby him for 2.5 months because everything around him is going to give you the opportunity to do so. Our texters agreed with you guys. 83% of people said Julian Sand. And I'm wondering if Will Howard doesn't win a national championship, if that number is even 10% higher than that. But 83% said Julian Sand, which moves us on to the running back room. There are a few places where I did just starters, and there's a few places where I did the room as a whole. The running back room in 2024 was Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins as the Ole Miss transfer, James Peoples and Sam Dixon as the true freshman running backs. And then the top four this year, I know there's more people than this, but 2025, Bo Jackson, CJ Donaldson, the West Virginia transfer, James Peoples, and then Isaiah West has entered the top four conversation. Obviously, you have Turbo Rogers as well in that room as a guy who was clearly redshirting this season. So this is about room. It's not just about the top two, because if we just did the top two, I think our texters would have been like 99% 2024, and then one person would have probably said this year because Bo Jackson. Why not? Is this close if you bring in the totality of the room, Andrew, or is the ceiling of last year just too high, too much of a gap to try to make up?
Yeah, it's too much of a gap to try to make up. Bo Jackson, CJ Donaldson, James Peoples, and Isaiah West in that order. 6.4, 4.2, 5.1, and 5 yards a carry. Last year, Quinshon and Travion, 5.5 and 7.1. So obviously, Travion kind of leads the way there. But those numbers are not exactly all that far off. Quinshon was there between the tackles guy, and he was getting 5.5 yards a carry. Peoples is 5.1, Donaldson's 4.2. It's not a crazy difference, but I really didn't struggle with this one either. There were a few positions that I did. This one was not one of them. You had 2 top 40 picks at running back, and you had 2 guys that complemented each other so well. And this year, I think you could have that. It's just guys are young. You've got, Bo Jackson and Isaiah West, maybe the 2 best running backs in the room are freshmen, and not just the Julian saying I can win a freshman of the week award as a redshirt freshman. They are true freshmen. They were in high school a year ago. So, those 2 being in the room, I don't think they've necessarily found their footing yet. Peoples is obviously not. Donaldson is kind of, like we said, their situational back. So I understand that Judkins and Henderson were, only 2. And this year, hey, you've got 4 guys, but it's not, in my opinion, hey, you've got 4 guys that are just so awesome you can't leave them off the field. And even if you want to get, technical with it, last year's third running back was James Peoples, and he averaged 4 yards a carry, and that seems fine considering, you have a running back getting 4 yards a carry. This year, CJ Donaldson's getting 4.2 yards a carry. I don't know. I think it was 2024 pretty significantly. I'm not sure really what the case is for 25 being a better room.
What is there a case at all, Stefan?
Not right now. I don't think so. The thing is, could Isaiah West, continue to take a step and suddenly, him and Bo Jackson are putting up numbers at a rate comparable to what, Quinshon and Travion did? Sure, we can get there. But as we sit here on October 22nd, I just don't think you could really make a case for this running back room quite yet.
Ryan Day told us on Tuesday there's no hierarchy, but we're going to ignore that sentiment for the sake of this conversation real quick. If we had to say what the hierarchy 1 through 4 is, what would you say it is?
I'd still stick with what I said on Monday's Buckeye Talk. It's probably Bo Jackson, Isaiah West, CJ Donaldson is third / situational fitting.
Okay.
Third. He's the third down guy now. And he's third on the list. And then fourth, probably James Peoples.
And I would say for the sake of putting 1 through 4 and not doing the 1A, 1B thing we did last year, I'll give Travion 1 because he's been here longer and he's the veteran and he did start more of the games, technically speaking. Travion, Quinshawn, James Peoples, Sam Williams-Dixon. I would say pretty comfortably that James Peoples as a second-year player is better than freshman Sam Dixon. Okay, so that's a point for 2025. I would probably say less emphatically, but still, CJ Donaldson is better than first-year James Peoples. So that's another point for 2024. 5. I would also say Quinshawn Judkins is better than Isaiah West. Like, that's right. That's not even close. So that's a point for 2024. And Travion Henderson's better than Bo Jackson. So that's another point for 2024. So if you just looked at it and added up points, it's like it's 2-2. Maybe it's not that close. But the gap between where Travion Henderson and Bo Jackson is right now, with all due respect to Bo Jackson, and the gap between where Quinshawn Judkins and Isaiah West is right now is so much wider than the gap between 3 and 4 on both sides that this is not really much of a conversation, which is why our Texans went 99%. 2024 is better. I think wide receiver is where this gets fun because the names for 2 of the positions are the same. And then you've got Emeka Egbuka, who is probably the favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year right now in the NFL. So let's start with that because I think you can't say which JJ would you take, 2024 JJ or 2025 JJ. I think you would take the 2025 JJ, right? Is that true? Is that 100% true? Because we're taking production into account right now.
I think so.
Okay.
His numbers aren't that far off from last year, right?
No. I mean, no, it's just the yards per catch is down. Everything else is the literal same. And the reason why the yards per catch are down is because of what he did last year. So it's not, you're getting less room to work because everybody knows when you get room to work, you'll kill us.
But he's still getting more yards per game.
But he's still getting more yards per game. He still has more catches. He still has more targets and he still has more touchdowns. I think Carnell this year is probably better. And it's probably less of I don't know if he's that much better than last year, Andrew. I just think he's higher up on the hierarchy, so he's getting more opportunities to show it.
The opportunity cost is higher. He's getting more opportunity. So, yeah, I mean, I think Carnell's probably improved from last year. He's just also, in a scenario where that's true. So, I think he's better, and I think he's just getting more chances to prove it.
I think it's also, it's probably not so much part of this conversation. His blocking has gotten so much better this year.
That's true. I'll come back because I think it's Emeka over Brandon Ennis. That's not a conversation. One led this team in catches. The other one might not even have 50 catches this year.
But is that the comparison?
Yeah, I think
shouldn't we be comparing JJ to JJ as the number 1 and number 1 and then Emeka to this year's Carnell? Because that was the number 2 receiver last year.
I guess, do you want to do it by that or do you want to do it by specific position in the wide receiver depth chart?
You're the host. I guess I'll leave it up to you.
No, I don't think either is. I think it's however you wanted to interpret it. I think I think not everybody viewed it the same way, which is maybe where the voting was. I think it depends on how you want to view it.
I don't know. What do you think, Gillis?
I think you compare the way that I did it was I compared 1 and 2. I compared JJ and Emeka and JJ and Carnell. And then I compared the 3. I think you need to split these things because the top 2 in this room in the last 2 years have been, while not this decidedly, while not this level, they've been definitely a head and shoulder a cut above. Jeremiah last year, 76 catches, Emeka 81. Arnold had 52. Stephen was saying, Brandon, this might not even have 50 catches. Carnell barely had 50 catches, right? Mm-hmm. You look at this year, and I think it's the same thing. It's 49 and 34 for JJ and Carnell, and then it's Brandon, and it's down at 14. So I personally think, frankly, that this year's team is better. That this year's team is better at 1 and 2. I think Carnell is awesome, and I think JJ and Carnell are just that much better than what JJ and Emeka were last year. It's close, but I would take this year's unit over last year's. Where you lose me is the gap is small there. You could make a reasonable case that last year's 1-2 punch of JJ and Emeka was better, and I'm not going to throw a huge hissy fit about it. I get it. Where you lose me is Carnell versus Ennis. And that, to me, last year's Carnell versus this year's Ennis That's not close. That is not a debate. I think last year's room was deeper. This year's room has a higher ceiling, but it's very close. So I went with last year's unit, even though I think the two best receivers are better, because I think that gap is small. And I think the gap from your third receiver last year to your third receiver this year is just not even close.
I guess we could have your cat be the deciding vote there, Steven.
Live shows are live for a reason.
Think Carnell or Brandon Dennis. What do you think?
Sounds like Carnell to me.
Cool. All right. Well, okay. Anyway, I would say that. I mean, I think regardless of which way you choose it, I know this is going to be very hard to like take me serious while I have a cat who is begging me for attention right now. I think regardless of which way you split it, you end up with the same result. You end up with there's a gap between whoever the third guy is in this equation and Brandon Ennis right now, right? Whether you look at it as Cardinal Tate's wide receiver 3, Brandon Ennis is wide receiver 3, or you look at it as slot receiver versus slot receiver. I think the gap ends up being the same. So we took two different journeys to get to the same result here at the end of the day, which is why the reason I did it position by position was how I looked at this team with some of these deciding factors was if you were to combine both of these teams, who would you take? Okay, which quarterback would you take? Which running back would you take? Which slot receiver would you take? Which Z, which X, which tight end, which left tackle, which right tackle, right? And you have to look at it like that. Like, what position did you play in your era? Well, that's what position you have to play on this specific team. So if that's the gap, I guess we're kind of having the same conversation we had at running back. Regardless of the situation, wide receiver 4 right now is Brandon Ennis in 2024 and Mylan Graham in 2025 because Bryson Rodgers has been hurt and it's allowed Mylan Graham to get opportunities. 24 Brandon Ennis or 25 Mylan Graham, I guess becomes the question here, Stefan.
Yeah, I think it's probably Ennis.
I was afraid of the idea that we are using what we've seen with Brandon Ennis now that he's moved up in the hierarchy and people have fallen in love with Mylan, that people were going to use that as part of their conversation. And it's like, Brandon Ennis has scored. They've used him in high leverage moments. Mylan Graham, Andrew, hasn't necessarily played in a high leverage moment yet. So right now, I think at this point last year, Brandon Ennis as a wide receiver 4 was a little bit more proven, while Mylan Graham is still the idea of what he was as a recruit.
Yeah. Graham last year had 2 catches, or Graham this year has, I just lost it, 2 catches for 33 yards. Like, I get it. I get the idea. But last year, Ennis 14 catches, 176, and a touchdown. He wasn't featured, but the stats are what they are.
So you took 24. Stefan, what year are you taking?
I'm taking. I just think what you have from JJ and Carnell this year is I think it's a better 1-2. Like, even if you were to do JJ and Emeka compared to these two, I think I'm taking these two. Like, and I don't think that's crazy to say because, like, I think we do have in our mind still like what Emeka's doing right now, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that he was bad his last year of college and now he's good his first year in the NFL, but like what Emeka's doing right now, I don't know. Cardinal Tate could be drafted 19th overall next year. Mocks have him going like 20th-ish. Mm-hmm. So he's obviously playing at a level comparable to where Emeka went in the NFL draft. So I don't want to rule out the idea that he can have a breakout rookie year in the NFL too. So I'm taking this year's group. I think JJ and Carnell as a 1-2 punch is better than however you want to look at it from the 2024 team. And although Ennis is coming along, maybe at a slower pace than, the number 3 receiver last year, it's kind of like the running back conversation where I feel like what you're getting from 1 and 2 is so good that it's enough to carry the room.
If you had to rank Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate 2025 and Emeka Egbuka 2024, what's the order?
I think I personally would go JJ, Carnell, Emeka.
That's why I went with 25.
Because I think Carnell has taken such a step forward in his game. Yeah. And I think one thing that we have to remember too is like, I think Brandon Ennis, his numbers aren't looking great this year because there's the other 2 guys obviously, and there's just times where it seems like him and Julian are kind of out of sync. But I could say the same thing last year about Carnell. It just felt like him and Will Howard were out of sync at times. It's like, mm-hmm. I don't know, like if we want to say Carnell wasn't as good in 2024 because of this, then, that could allow us to prop up Brandon Ennis a bit more this year and say, hey, well, he's going through those same things. So, yeah, I think that's what it was for me. I think JJ and Carnell this year is a better 1-2 than than JJ and Michael last year.
Yeah, that's why I went with this. We're underrating Emeka Egbuka again. We're back to doing it. But it's a serious, and some of this is you take draft stock into equation here, right? If you just lined all three of these up, these three guys up in an NFL draft right now, when one of them 6'4", 220, the other one's 6'3", 200, and the other one's 6'1", 205, like that's the order they would go in an NFL draft.
I also think Carnell could probably thank Emeka and be like, oh yeah, my draft stock just went up because of what you're doing.
I think, Carnell's doing what he's doing, but Emeka doing what he's doing paired with that as two guys who have never been the number one receiver in the college football team before. And Chris Olave sort of the same way. There's like three different trees of receivers here. There's the I'm wide receiver one, I'm better than everybody else, hear me roar. And that's like Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, Jeremiah Smith, Chris Henry Jr. is probably going to go on that tree, right? Then you have the I am definitely a wide receiver one, I just came here. And that's Chris Olave, Emeka Egbuka, now Carnell Tate. And now you make Quincy Porter might be the next guy up on that. Like, I am a wide receiver one, I just came here. Mylan Graham might be that, right? Caden Dixon-Wyatt in the 2026 class might be that. Jameer Brown might end up turning into that. Or he might be in the specialized Jackson Smith-Njigba section of like, I am playing with two wide receiver ones and I don't care. Give me the ball because I'm better than everybody. And then you have the kind of Julian Fleming, Jamison Williams category of I'm not getting the ball. Here's the context for why. With Julian Fleming, it was I'm just kind of a step below where everybody else is. With Jamison Williams, it's one ball and it's only but so many targets to go around, right? And he went to Alabama and showed us that. I think it's Gillis. You said it. I don't that you think that this is more Julian Fleming with Brandon Ennis. I don't know if I know yet because we just did it yesterday. We broke down the targets and we got before we even blinked, we had 6 targets left. So I genuinely don't know what it is with Brandon Ennis while he's not getting the ball, other than there's a lot of different guys here. And so I almost want to say, let's see what happens in 2026 when one of these guys leaves the room. Let's see if Brandon Ennis moves up the hierarchy, or do one of these guys behind him, whether already in the room or in the recruiting class right now, jump him, and maybe I can have a better answer to that question for you. But that's why I went with 2025. Gillis, you went with 2024. Our texters joined you. 80% said 2024. And I genuinely think it's because of Emeka Egbuka. That gap between him and Brandon Ennis is significantly wider than anything else we're talking about right now. I think if we had done this before Emeka Egbuka had played a single snap in the NFL, I think 24 would have still won, but it probably wouldn't have been 80-20. It probably would have been more 60-40. But when you paired with Emeka Egbuka is killing it in the NFL right now, and Brandon Ennis has 14 catches, those two things do not relate to each other whatsoever. Last thing offensively, from a player perspective, before we talk coordinators. Josh Simmons, Donovan Jackson, Seth McLaughlin, Tegra Shabola, Josh Fryer versus Austin Sarabeld, Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinsman, Tegra Shabola, Phillip Daniels. Gillis.
It's 24. I think last year's unit was better. I think the crazy thing about it is last year's unit had a first-round pick at left tackle, like the one that we're talking about, a first-round pick at left tackle, a first-round pick at left guard, the Remington Award winner at center, and then a guy who started on last year's team who's on this year's team starting at the same position, and then a fifth-year right tackle who I think he had a camp invite. I don't know if he's still on the team.
He's on
Josh
the team.
Fryer, and he's still on the team.
Yes.
But he had a camp invite to Arizona. So I think you look at it and you go, well, duh. Like, obviously it's 24. It's closer than you think because Sarabeld has been awesome at left tackle. He hasn't allowed a sack yet. Like, Sarabeld has been unbelievably good. I think Luke Montgomery has been really, really good at left guard. We kind of started to throw out the idea of Carson Hinsman being in the Remington conversation. The right side of the offensive line is a work in progress, but I think it's 24, but I think it's close because of the way that Sarabeld, Montgomery, and Hinsman have played. One of the reasons why I think it's 24 is because you do have that upside of Simmons. Jackson, I think, was maybe a better lineman than anybody gave him credit for until he went to left tackle, because that versatility, the athleticism that you have to play that, oh my God. Like, it is so unbelievably hard to do what he did, and I don't want people to forget that. So, Donovan Jackson at left guard, you have the Remington Award winner at center, Like, Seth McLaughlin was really, really, really good. And I know he blew his Achilles, like, I think it was after the 10th game of the year. It was
He's
before
still
Indiana.
healthy at this point.
Yeah, I know, but people are, because I was saying like the playoff run with Donnie, like, you didn't have the playoff run with Seth, but you saw it. He won the Remington Award and he didn't finish the season. So he was that good. I think they've regressed on the right side of the offensive line, which is partially why I'm going 24. Like, I think Tegra's worse than he was last year. Like, Tegra, it just feels like Tegra has not gotten better, and he frankly probably has taken a step back from what he was last year. And I know Josh Fryer was always kind of this, idea for Ohio State fans to poke at and say, like, no, I can't believe that, Josh Fryer and this and blah, blah. Philip Daniels' PFF grade this year is his pass blocking grade 57.4. His run blocking grade is 62.9. And you go to Fryer last year, and Fryer's last year, it was a 63.3 pass blocking and a 62.7 run blocking. I think Fryer was pretty much the same as Philip Daniels, maybe a slight uptick of better, like last year. I think 23 Josh Fryer was so different than 24 Josh Fryer, and people need to remember that. Josh Fryer was pretty good last year. He was reliable. He was solid. Philip Daniels has had some moments, and I don't think he's had a last good 2 games. I don't think he was good against Illinois. I don't think he was good against Wisconsin. And I think just because everybody's focused on right guard, that conversation has maybe gone a little bit by the wayside. So I think it's 24. I think the whole collective of it, I think you were more stable on the right side of the offensive line, when you did need that stability. I think the left side of the offensive line had that upside from McLaughlin to Jackson to Simmons. So that's why I went with 24. But 25 has certainly made their case known because they have been very, very good.
Stefan, where is 25's edge if they have one?
That's tough. I mean, I'm open to the idea of Austin Serveld being a better left tackle than Josh Simmons even was. And like, this isn't like, I'm not talking to you as an NFL scout. I'm talking to you as a guy who covers college football. Like, what Serveld is doing at left tackle right now through this point of the season is just as good, if not better, than what Josh Simmons was doing before he got injured for Ohio State. So I think it's obviously the left guard discussion would be tough just because Donovan Jackson was kind of he almost feels like he's one of one. And then Austin Serveld, I was laughing at Gillis saying like how impossible it is to do what Donovan Jackson did. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, Austin Serveld just did it. So I agree. It is very impressive to do. Ohio State has just made it look not that tough. So I think you could make the case that Serveld Montgomery, at least by the end of the year, is a better combo than Simmons and Jackson. That's maybe where your argument can be. But from center, or at least on the right side, it's pretty tough to try to give 2025 any sort of edge. And I do think it's tough because we just gave the running backs a pretty like non-argument advantage for 2024. So maybe that plays into this argument, but Ohio State's run blocking last year was significantly better than it is this year. And that's a big part of it, right? Like, we can't grade the offensive line just based off of, Julian Sain hasn't gotten hit, or hey, Will Howard wasn't getting hit. Like, run game is a big part of this conversation as well. And I don't think there's much of a discussion for at least through this point, which offensive line was better at run blocking. Maybe left side of the line, you could make an argument for this year just because of how good Austin Serveld and Luke Montgomery have been. But even that is kind of a stretch. I think last year's line was just better.
I think if I had to give Ohio State an edge in any place in this year, it might be center. And I understand Seth McLaughlin won the Remington Award last year, but the last time Ohio State won the Remington Award, they won it again. Pat Elflein won it in 2016, and then Billy Price followed up by moving the center and won it again in 2017. And it was like, oh, wait, we lost the Remington Award winner. What are we going to do? Okay, we're going to have a better Remington Award winner who was a first-round draft pick. And that's not saying that Carson Hinsman is going to be a first-round draft pick. But I don't think I look at what Seth McLaughlin was able to do through 8 games before he got hurt. I don't think I looked at what he did through 8 games, and I've looked at what Carson Hinsman has done through 7 games so far, and I see a drastic difference between the two. In fact, I think Carson Hinsman's environment is probably a little more difficult to thrive in than Seth McLaughlin's is, because we can draft picks. Part of it is part of the evaluation here, and Seth McLaughlin's left. Everybody to the left of Seth McLaughlin was a first-round draft pick. Yes, he had to help out Tegra, and sometimes Austin, who was playing in that role. But Gillis, you just said it. You think Tegra was probably better in 2024 than he is in 2025 so far. And Josh Fryer was a veteran, second-year starter at that point, who had played in meaningful snaps even before that season. So yes, Seth McLaughlin was a very good center here. And in fact, I think raised his profile because you got to remember, when he got here, he was the guy with the bad snaps at Alabama. To be fair, Carson Hinsman was the guy who lost his job to the guy who had bad snaps at Alabama. But then he got it back and had a pretty good championship run. But I think Carson Hinsman's had a pretty good year this year. And I wouldn't be shocked if he won the Remington Award. So we might be looking at those guys as a wash, and then it just comes down to who do you think is the better football player. I think Carson Hinsman's getting drafted, and I get it, not fair. McLaughlin got hurt, so he wasn't going to get drafted. But I think even if Seth McLaughlin hadn't have gotten hurt, I think Carson Hinsman might be a higher draft pick. I think Carson Hinsman's a really good football player. He just got thrown out there earlier than he should have, and it threw off his math a little bit. Our texters agree, though. 2024 is better, but it is closer than you would think. 69% said 2024. 25 got 31%. Last thing on offense before we switch over to defense. Hartline, Chip Kelly. We are doing this now, so we have to say who is better now.
Also, are we penciling in that the tight end room is better this year? It wasn't on the survey, so I just assume we're
the tight end room is better this year. Yeah. That's
I didn't. The thing is, I was thinking about it during the receiver conversation where I was like, Max Clare is part of this conversation.
Yes, and that's why I did not include the tight ends in the survey, because not only is the ceiling deeper and higher for this tight end room this year, there's more people involved with the tight end room this year. And Keenan Bailey said this room is better. So that's not even worth a conversation. That's a point for 2025.
And we didn't even have a fullback to really compare to from 2024.
No, man, we didn't. We didn't have a fullback. And now there's a true freshman playing fullback. Well, he's pretending to play fullback.
Unless you want to, I can't remember who it was. Who was it that lined up between Quinshawn and Travion on T formation?
It might have been Herbstreet's son, I think. I think it was Herbstreit. Don't quote me on that.
I can look it up while we start talking coordinator.
Andrew, is there a scenario where we would be saying that Brian Hartline's a better coordinator than Chip Kelly after 7 games for Ohio State?
It was Patrick Gerd.
Yes.
Is there a scenario that, repeat that one more time? Is there a scenario?
If we just said, hey, it's August, on October 22nd, we're going to do a podcast comparing 2025 to 2024. And we're going to say that we're going to ask the question, which coordinator was better, 2025 Hartline or 2024 Chip Kelly? Is there any reality where we say that Brian Hartline is the better coordinator? Or was it just always going to be Chip Kelly regardless of what Brian Hartline did the first 7 games?
I think it was going to be really tough to stop to top, because we have the built-in knowledge of Chip Kelly offensively, right? We had the built-in idea of Chip Kelly as a run game guy. We had the built-in concept of Chip Kelly and what he did in Oregon, and his success that he's had with offenses in college football before. And I don't know what really Hartline could have done to get ahead of that. And we were talking before the year, I made the point going into the Texas game, which again, I predicted them to lose, but I made the point going into that game of there's going to be moments that Brian Hartline says, I'm doing this right. And then if you do an interview with him in 2030, he'll say, oh my God, that first year when I was calling plays as an offensive coordinator, I can't believe I did this. I wish I had done that. How stupid was I to do this? That, I'm glad I got better at this because I started out here and I really elevated it. I don't know if that would have ever happened. I think it's Chip Kelly, just because the experience has to matter in a position like that.
So what if he beats Michigan, Stefan, and we do this again in November?
Yeah, I think we'd probably give the head coach some points too. But I think there was a world in which, I don't know if I completely agree, because I think Hartline could have solidified himself as no duh, this guy's been waiting to be the offensive coordinator. This is why. Had the season started, had he done what we thought Brian Hartline was going to do, what if Ohio State, instead of, this conservative approach, came out and was boom, here's 300 passing yards against Texas. Boom, here's 40 pass attempts at Washington. Boom, here's 50 passes at Illinois. And they're just throwing it all over the place. Everyone would be sitting at their TV being yes, this is what we've been waiting for. Brian Hartline, the guy who recruited all these receivers, is going to step in and take the next 5-star quarterback and just throw it all over the field. who cares about load management and 16 games and the run game? Just throw it all over the place. I think we'd be sitting here being like, Brian Hartline's a better coordinator because this is what Ohio State coordinators should just do. And then Brian Hartline hasn't exactly done that, so I think it's Chip Kelly.
I love this world. The only problem is they definitely lose in the second round of the college football playoff, and we go, so what? We had fun anyway. You want to have fun or you want to win natties? What's more important to you, being entertained or being a champion?
Brian Hartline can win this conversation if he decides to properly unleash the offense one game earlier than Chip Kelly did.
That's the answer to the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
The load management is not building for a first-round game against Tennessee. It starts on November 29th,
yes.
and then you get a month to recover, and then you keep doing that in the playoff.
Yeah, if you don't, whichever coordinator doesn't get their head coach cursed out by all of their players in a players-only meeting wins. Chip Kelly won. 91% of the votes went to Chip Kelly. It's not even close. And I get it. It's I think what's part of it is Ohio State clearly can't run the ball right now, and Chip Kelly's a run game guru. That's what he does. He's a run game guy. The passing game isn't the issue. And, well, nobody thought the passing game would be an issue because your wide receivers coach is now your offensive coordinator, where the head coach is also a quarterback's coach by trade. Let's do some defense. Does anybody disagree with our texters? I'm starting with linebackers. Does anybody disagree with our texters that the 2025 trio of Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, and Peyton Pierce is better than Cody Simon, Sonny Styles, and Arvell Reese from a year ago?
No. Arvell Reese is the best linebacker in the country.
Okay. And Sonny Styles might be the second best linebacker in the country.
24 had a team with a bunch of really good, but Arvell Reese is a top 10 pick. And I don't even know the last time Ohio State had a top 10 pick at linebacker. I would have to go back and look that up.
Important to say, too, at this point last season, Ohio State was not using its linebackers the way they used them in the playoff.
Yep. So imagine playoff linebacker, but also they're all 6'5", 240. 88% of our texters picked 25. 24, I think, is intriguing. You got Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau on the edge, and then Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton on the interior. 2025, you've got Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry on the edge, with Caden McDonald and Tywan Malone on the interior, which is an intriguing thing because that's supposed to be Edric, and it's not. But is that a ding against the interior, the defensive tackle room, or is that Edric got hurt? He's been weird. Tywan Malone has played very well. But regardless, is it 24, 25? And again, the thing is, 24 does have, I know we're in some of these conversations, we're trying to limit it to what they did in the first 7 games, which is why 24 gets to have the offensive line it had the first 7 weeks and not the offensive line it had in the college football playoff. But if we're going to do that, then we also have to take into the account, to the point we just talked about the linebackers, Jack, JT, Tyleik, and Ty were fine before they were monstars.
Yep. We were questioned after the Oregon game. We were asking ourselves, hey, why are Jack and JT not taking that step that we thought that they were going to take? Because that was, we were saying, hey, use the linebackers more, create pressure against Dylan Gabriels, but also why are Jack and JT not getting home against this guy? So yeah, we had real questions about those two. This is, I think this is the toughest. I think this might be the toughest debate on the entire sheet, because I think Caden Curry at this level, at right now, is playing better than Jack or JT were at this point last season.
It's not even close.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you've talked about it before. Like, Caden Curry is playing at a Chase Young pace, which is ridiculous. I would probably give Jack or JT the edge over Kenyatta, understanding that it's not completely fair because of what they've been asking Kenyatta to do. But I would probably give the edge to either Jack or JT. Because I think this year it's Caden 1, Caden Curry 1, Kenyatta 2 in terms of what we see in that defensive end. Probably. Whereas last year it was at this point it's probably like a 1A and 1B. So like whoever you think was the number 2, compare him to Kenyatta Jackson. That guy was probably better at this point last year. The interior is where it's interesting because I don't think it's a knock on 2025 because I know Edric hasn't been what we thought he was going to be, but Tywan Malone has been way better than we thought he was going to be. I mean, he made a huge play against Illinois. Yep. Like he's. I think the Edric conversation has clouded maybe how good Tywan Malone has actually been. Like I think we all looked at it as like, well, Tywan Malone's playing because Edric's not good enough. It's like I don't know, man. Maybe Tywan Malone's also playing well and worthy of a starting spot. But I'd probably take the 2024 interior. And I I might take it at both spots. The Caden McDonald conversation is interesting because he has been so good.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tyreek Williams was even better somehow. So I probably take 2024 because I think they're that much better in the interior. But it's tough because 2025 is pretty good on the edges.
I would say to 2025 point up to this point, and NBA in our chat is also saying this. Up to this point, it's 2025 for the defensive line. McDonald might be better than Tyreek. I think up to this point, 2025 has been more productive than 2024. Yeah. I don't know which one I would pick. Can I ask you a question, Gillis? I want to bring in another variable, and I didn't include him in the survey, but it's the wrench in this, in that Ohio State 2024 was strictly 4-man front, unless they were in literal prevent defense.
Mm-hmm.
We're living in a world where this defense goes to a 3-down front on 3rd down, and sometimes it's a defensive tackle, but sometimes they take that defensive tackle off the field, and it's Bo Atkinson playing on the interior, and you're turning Arvell Reese into an edge. Does that versatility in a world where Ohio State did not use that versatility last year, whether they had it or not, we don't know. But does that versatility at all maybe sway you towards 2025? Because there's multiple ways they can attack you. It just doesn't have to be our 3 4th-year guys and our 1 5th-year guy. Go get the quarterback, and if you don't, then we don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think it absolutely has to. Like, and I'll say this, like, is it Jack Sawyer's fault that they decided, hey, we're not gonna use you in a different way? Is it JT Tuimoloau's fault, Tyreek Williams' fault, Caden McDonald? No, like, they weren't, to the best of my knowledge, they weren't calling the defense, right? They weren't having, like, so who's to say that, JT couldn't have come down as a 3 technique sometimes and just wreaked havoc, or who's to say that if you go to a 3-man front that, Jack Sawyer can't play as a 34 basically defensive end where he's inside and he's not asked to rush the pass. It's like, that's not their fault, but it's what we got. And that's unfortunately for the 2025 team, a point in their favor, like, or for the 2024 team, a point in the 25 team's favor. Like, they are more versatile, whether or not that was their fault or not. It's kind of like the conversation we were having about Julian Saint and the Heisman stuff, where it's like, there was the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season. It was like, hey, Julian Saint is really good, but like, other guys are ahead of him right now. It's not Julian's fault. Like, he's not calling the plays. Ohio State's purposely doing this, and like, he just kind of has to do what he's told. So I went with the 25 defense, frankly, because, and it's close, because I think Stefan is right. I think, like, if you had to rank them, like, Hayden Curry is, I think, the most productive of the defensive ends. But I think you could make a case that Jack and JT are 2 and 3 when you compare those 4 with Kenyatta in the mix. I think the defensive tackles is where it gets squirrely, because it's like, okay, Tyreek might have been the best, but man, Caden McDonald's right there. Tywan Malone's been really good, but he's a different type of player than Ty Hamilton was. But I just went with 25 because I think about that Oregon game. Like, that Oregon game, like, I know we've said, comparing the whole season, comparing the first 7 games, Ohio State allowed 496 yards of offense, and they just did not get any pressure on Dylan Gabriel. And Dylan Gabriel was able to just stand in and just deliver the ball. Jordan James, 23 carries, 115 yards, and a touchdown. Gabriel was mobile out of the pocket. He had that long running touchdown. Like, I just don't think that would happen to the 2025 team. I don't think the 2025 defensive line allows for a quarterback to have as much time as he does, and allows 115 yards rushing, where it's just, they are just kind of beating you over the head with it, and you almost allow 500 yards. I don't know if the 25 defense has that in them, and I went with 25.
Well, I'm willing to give 25 a half point for Arvell Reese. We can count Arvell Reese in this. I'm going to go with 2025 as well if we're counting the way. I mean, Arvell Reese lines up at defensive end sometimes.
And they bring Sonny off the edge, too, a lot more. I'll say this, Andrew, to that point of, you don't know if 2025 would give that up. We do know whether they would, because both teams went out to the Pacific Northwest to play a team that's got a little quarterback who can run around a little bit, got a pretty elite receiver, and a really good running back. One team came back allowing 6 points. The other team came back allowing 30+. And from a totality standpoint, I get it. Oregon is more talented than Washington is. But if we're just talking about those three key positions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, which quite frankly, if you got a quarterback, running back, and a wide receiver, you can find yourself playing in any game. Doesn't mean you're going to win every game, but you have. I think if you have those three positions on lock on offense in college football specifically, anything is possible on any given Saturday for you guys. Damon Williams, I think, and Dylan Gabriel are a wash. Denzel Boston is better than any wide receiver Oregon had last year. Jonah Coleman versus Jordan James, I think, might be a wash too. Now, if you want to bring in the rest of the roster, fine. But if we're just talking about those three positions, Washington's guys at those three positions did not go off on Ohio State's defensive line. Oregon's three guys at those three key positions went off on Ohio State's 2024 defensive line. Our Texans don't agree, though. We got to move through this. They went with JT, Tyleek, and Ty Hamilton. They got 58% of the votes. And I do think some of that is aura. Those four mean more. Like I don't know if like Caden, JT, Taiwan, Caden McDonald, even if you want to throw Edric in this, even if you want to give the half the point to Arvell Reese, they don't have moments that are as loud as what those four have in their careers. And so I get it. There's a love there that those four have earned. And they can do that, right? Like Arvell's first big moment was the Texas game. Some of these moments are coming up on the schedule to do that some more. Caden Curry and Caden McDonald had a moment against Washington. But again, that's not a number 2 versus number 3 or number 1 versus number 3 matchup where it's just as loud. So I get it. I get why you went that way. Cornerback, I don't think this is close. I don't think Davis Igbenogson, Jermaine Matthews, Devin Sanchez versus Denzel Burke, Igbenogson, and Jermaine Matthews is close. And here's why. One, Jermaine Matthews is better as a cover corner than Denzel Burke. So if we're doing that 1 for 1, there's that. 2, Davis Igbenogson had 16 penalties last year. I think he has 2 right now. Mm-hmm. He is a better cornerback this year. I don't know if he's going to be a first-round pick in April, but I'm no longer looking at Andrew sideways for thinking he's going to be a first-round draft pick in April. Listen, man, they put the oven mitts on him all offseason, and it worked. They're all
train's not going too fast right now. If you want to hop on, it's right. Now is the time.
I mean, they're missing. Get expensive. He's definitely not. He's as handsy as he was last year. He's just getting away with it more this year. Which, listen, that's part of the game.
He also knows when to let go. I think that's the important thing. He didn't know when to let go last year,
and that's a key in life.
He had a real Titanic situation going on.
Yeah, that's
never let go.
Never wrong, just early.
That's key in life. Never letting go. And I think Jermaine Matthews last year is probably better than true freshman Devin Sanchez to this point. But give it time. Little Jalen Ramsey's coming, man. Just give it time. He's chugging along, getting his experience, learning the game, getting better each week. Referees are calling weird pass interference calls against Wisconsin when he didn't touch a player. But little Jalen Ramsey's coming. Just give it some time. Our texter said 83% to 17% 2025. It's not close. It's not close. It's a combination of the top 2 are better than last year's top 2. And even if you think number 3 last year is better than the number 3 this year, the number 3 this year's upside is so ridiculously out the wazoo that you take it every single time, especially when they're number 3. I think if they were starters, it'd be a different conversation. But Devin Sanchez is being asked to do a very specific thing right now. And they're treating him like Julian saying almost, where it's give him a little bit, 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 and then you get to the playoff and maybe you throw the whole plate at him. But I like this. He is excelling in what his role is supposed to be right now.
It first off, when you started talking, the tornado sirens in Columbus just started going off because it's a Wednesday at noon. So I was like, that's a sign.
Little Ramsey, baby.
Here comes Devin Sanchez. The other thing too is like it is I think an important point to just kind of like with a lot of this to just lay out like Denzel Burke got drafted, and Denzel Burke was like an NFL player,
but all three of these guys are getting drafted.
And I'm not saying that as like a hey guys, like let's talk about the 24 team. I mean that as the 24 team had a draft pick at corner, and we're not even having a conversation about this unit being better. And I don't mean that as like a hey guys, like let's be nice here. I mean that as like this is a credit to what 2025 has done. And this is a credit to how good they have been. It's an interesting conversation when you talk about 24 compared to 25. These 24 was loaded with NFL talent too. It's just this is just so much.
Denzel Burke got drafted. All 3 of these guys are probably going to go no later than day 2. That's why. Like all 3 of these guys, the latest they're going to go is a 3rd round draft pick. And then even if you want to throw in the 4th guy, Aaron Scott, second year Aaron Scott's better than first year Aaron Scott. I don't even think this is a conversation. Safety trios. Downs, Ransom, Hancock versus Downs, McClain, Lorenzo, Styles. Our texter said 71% to 29%, 2024. Is that the right gap, Stefan?
Probably, because I think Caleb and Caleb, I guess you could say 2025 Caleb is a touch better, but 2024 Caleb was still really damn good. Lathan and Jalen, I'd probably at this point still give a little bit of an edge to Lathan, but it's probably pretty close. And I don't think the Hancock Lorenzo Styles debate is much of one.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think this is interesting is if you can't yet,
Yes.
but if
for
we
2
start
games
seeing
now.
more and more Jermaine in the nickel and Lorenzo Styles is maybe less a part of this conversation, then that's where I think it gets interesting. Although what's interesting though is like Hancock played the Lorenzo role where it was nickel that would move to safety, whereas Jermaine is nickel who's going to move to corner. So that's where it becomes interesting, right? Because it's not the exact same skill set when we have this conversation. But
No.
I'd probably still lean 2024 at this point because we don't have proof yet that Lorenzo Styles isn't the starting nickel when he's healthy.
I'm trying to see right now if they do the thing that they were doing with Lorenzo Styles, and it's not as prominent. Against Illinois, Jermaine Mathers was in the box on 12 snaps. He was a free safety for 6 snaps, in the slot for 44, and at outside corner for 4. Against Wisconsin, he was in the box for 5 snaps. He was at free safety for 7 snaps, 17 in the slot, and then 8 at corner. So it's not as drastic. The multiplicity of this defense in the back end isn't as prominent as it is when it's a guy who's doing that full time. So you're probably right. But again, they have 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, does it take away from the cornerback, though? Because if he's going to move into this nickel safety, nickel corner role, and now all of a sudden your top 3 outside corners are Davis and Igbinosun, Devin Sanchez, and Aaron Scott, does that close the gap between 20 and 24?
I think it does because right now Devin is still a bit of an idea. Although at this point last year, we were not speaking very highly of Denzel Burke. Granted, he did everything in his power to change the narrative around him and make that Oregon game feel like a one-off. Yeah, it would be interesting. Like, do you feel, obviously Davison is better this year than he was last year. Do you feel Devin right now is better than Denzel was last year? I think it's an interesting discussion. It's probably premature to say Devin, right? Even though this, like you said, the ceiling is there, it's probably premature to say Devin. So yeah, I think if Jermaine is part of more of a safety conversation, then yeah, I think the corner conversation becomes a bit different. So there's give or take. So that's kind of why I'll give corners to 2025 and safeties to 2024.
I don't think he's definitely not been better than Denzel Burke. I don't think he's been worse. Like I think they're in the same stratosphere. It's just Denzel was older, so maybe he's made a few more plays by now, but then he's also had more opportunities to make a few more plays. I want to read this text before I get into our last one. It's from Tyler in Toronto. You have to admit, asking us to actually click an answer for better defensive coordinator with what's going on in Happy Valley right now is objectively hilarious. I know, Tyler, that's why I did it. Because I knew this would happen. I didn't know it would happen this significantly.
Is it 100%? Did we get a hundo?
It is a hundo. It is a hundo.
That's crazy.
Let me refresh one more time just to make sure. Because votes are still coming in. I sent this out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday.
I haven't submitted my vote yet. I could change it.
Don't do that. No, don't ruin it. It's a hundo.
That's crazy.
It's literally, I'm refreshing it and votes are still coming in. It's still 100%. So let me ask the question this way then. It is March 1st. I think that's not the exact date, but I think that's about when we found out that Matt Patricia was going to be the defensive coordinator. Who would you take? Matt Patricia or Jim Knowles? It's March 1st. Very one-word answer. Knowles or Patricia on March 1st?
Knowles.
Duh.
Okay. June 1st. Knowles or Patricia?
Knowles, but I was feeling a little differently.
Okay. Gillis?
Feeling no differently.
Okay. September 1st. So this is 48 hours after the Texas game. Knowles or Patricia? Gillis?
Feeling slightly differently.
Okay. But it's still Knowles?
It's still Knowles.
Okay.
I saw Arvell Reese Unleashed. I was Patricia.
You were locked in? Okay. First bye week. September 1st. That's Sunday after the first bye week. Knowles or Patricia? Gillis?
Patricia.
Stefan?
Patricia.
Okay. But is it a conversation still?
Maybe, but I think
Maybe
we
slightly.
were starting to see, hey, this guy can do in year 1 and this guy needs 3 years.
They also had just played Grambling in Ohio, so it was, if you wanted to make that conversation of like, hey, he's played one team and maybe Arch stinks, like I get it.
Yep.
But
Okay. By the end of the day,
Yeah.
when we're at dinner in Seattle, and
Yep.
Gillis is depressed over a bet he made. Knowles or Patricia?
Patricia.
I wish I had a pencil to put in my ear right now.
Like,
This was the game where it flipped for me.
It's
like,
like
there's not even a conversation.
it's not. It's like soundly like we're not even talking about this anymore. It's Patricia.
Yeah, right.
Matt Patricia needs to write a book on how to gain the love of Ohio State fans in 9 months.
Chapter 1: Last guy leaves for a rival. I was thinking about this as you were talking about the voting. I was just like, there are definitely some people that were like, Jim Knowles had the number 1 defense for 2 years in a row, but I hate that SOB. And they were like, no. And it's like, man, Jim Knowles was a very, very, very good defensive coordinator. I don't think you can really argue that Matt Patricia and what he's done this year has been more impressive, but it's not like Jim Knowles is just some schmuck. He also just immediately, the problems that Jim Knowles' defense had, Matt Patricia showed up, cleaned them up, kept the defense humming at a high level when they lost a lot of players. And then also, I mean, look, maybe Matt Patricia leaves for Michigan, or maybe Matt Patricia leaves maybe he takes over in Penn State next year.
Why would you even say that?
Can I ask?
But Jim Knowles leaving, I think, for Penn State made this to a thing where it was like, there's not going to be a single voter that would just take Matt Patricia, or that would take Jim Knowles right now because of everything.
I'm going to give our texters more credit than that. I don't think they're idiots. I don't think they're stupid. And
I'm not saying that they are.
No, let me finish. And I don't think this is not just based off of emotion. Because they left for a rival. Dude, Penn State's not a rival. They're just an historic. They're just a team that they were tied to because they were in the same division at that. This is not he left from Michigan. He left for Penn State and he went home. And I know it's annoying, but okay, it's Ohio State. They'll have good coordinators. Ohio State had good coaches and good players for a long time. I don't think this is emotionally based. Because if it was emotionally based, just how I asked you guys on March 1st, who would you choose? June 1st, who would you choose? September 1st, who would you choose? I think our texters would have been like Matt Patricia on every single one of those steps if it was strictly emotion. I don't think this is emotion. I think this is, look at what's happening. And it explains so much. Stefan, you just said it. It takes him 3 years. If it takes him 3 years, and it takes Jim Knowles 3 years, and he has a ready-made defense, and look what they're doing. Their defense is not playing well. We can talk about the talent they have all we want, and we'll do that a lot next week, and deny Dennis Sutton and A.J. Harris and Zane Durant. They got some dudes over there, but they are not playing like they have dudes over there. And it's because of what you just said, Stefan. It takes 3 years. So, okay, let's put Jim Knowles in this system right now, where they just lost 8 starters on defense. You think it would look this good? Or would we be going, hey man, I promise you, in 2 years when Devin Sanchez is a junior and Riley Pettijohn's a junior and Jalen McClan is a senior and, CJ Hicks has had another year as a defensive, I promise you this thing is going to look really, really good. Remember the process.
The whole point is that the young guys kind of build up. So it would not be as good as it is now, but it wouldn't be another complete reset.
I think it would be a complete reset.
I don't think so.
You were not here in 2022. That team was giving up explosive plays like Oprah was handing out free cars. And I think it would 100% be a hard reset of guys trying to learn how to do this thing. Jim Knowles maybe not having the trust to be as multiple as they needed to be.
Yeah.
Last year, I think we would be living in 2022 all over again, where would they have a top 25 defense? Without a doubt, they're talented enough. But Jay you know what would have happened against Washington? Oh, Denzel Boston's wide open because of a coverage bust, 40-yard touchdown. Oh, Jonah Coleman through the lane. He's gone. 75 yards down the field. Why wasn't anybody in the hole? Because they aren't thinking too much. They're doing. I think we would have seen a repeat, and it would have taken 3 years to get back to 2024. And what he's doing at Penn State is proof of that. And if the alternative to a guy who needs 3 years to fully implement his system, regardless of whether or not those players are growing in the system or not, is this guy comes in and he needs 9 months to turn Arch Manning, who was the Heisman Trophy favorite, as the quarterback of the national championship favorite, into mush like that. I think that is why it's 100% Matt Patricia. Sure, sticking it to Knowles is fine, but it's also the context of we would be having a different conversation about this defense. We would be saying, look at the individual pieces who are showing promise. Imagine what it's going to look like when it clicks. It's already clicking. Because this is Ohio State. This isn't Oklahoma State. It's not supposed to take you 3 years to figure things out. You're supposed to do it now.
The thing that I was trying to say was like it would be better with Patricia. I'm not saying it like they also be doing the same thing, and that's not what I'm saying at all. This defense is so much better because Matt Patricia has taken over. I think the thing with Knowles is the versatility of different guys. Like I think we made a joke yesterday, like Jim Knowles would have Arvell Reese playing the Cody Simon role. Like, come on, man! Like Arvell Reese is not that. Like he would be playing off ball. They wouldn't be having this. They wouldn't be having. Yeah, what's that?
I'm looking at Jim Knowles being like, why wasn't Arvell Reese doing more last year?
Bingo.
Yeah,
let me tell you why. And I'm going to tell you why because I was there. This is not like a hypothetical. I was there. I'm going to tell you why Arvell Reese was not doing more last year. To our people who are listening live or anybody who can't listen till later, you remember when Jack Sawyer was playing the Jack and we were like having conversations with Jim Knowles about how the Jack starts out as a Jack and then once it eventually figures it out, he's going to turn into a Leo and all these different things? You want to know what the Jack is? Go watch Arvell Reese next Saturday. He's the most hybrid thing I've ever seen. There are some plays where he's an off-ball linebacker. There are some plays when he's in coverage. But when it gets to third and long, they're putting that boy on the edge or making him pick a gap and say, find your best way to the quarterback. And he finds his best way to the quarterback. He is everything CJ Hicks was supposed to be when he got here. And he is not that because they tried to do it with a dude who is not built to have that skill set. He is a traditional setting the edge defensive end, and it didn't work, and they couched it for the rest of Jim Knowles' time here. That's the answer to why Arvell Reese is just now getting on the field, because they didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I think this is just no debate. I mean, it's not a debate, and I think our texter showed us that. Devil's advocate. Can we give 1% to 2024 Knowles if we include 2024 defensive coordinator of the second half, Ryan Day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Post Oregon game defensive coordinator Ryan Day.
Yes. I don't know if it dawned on me before that because I was watching the votes come in all yesterday and I'm thinking to myself, man, y'all hate Jim Knowles this much, and then I go, that's not giving the fans enough credit. They know what they went through for 3 years. Ohio State wins a national championship in 2020. I get it. They missed a 50-yard field goal. Lathan Ransom also fell down.
I think the emotional part of it, too, like, I don't know, if Penn State's defense was looking like we thought it might look and Ohio State's defense was struggling, I think Ohio State fans would say, damn, I wish Knowles was still here.
And the reason why
Ohio State's defense is at a historic pace right now.
Yeah.
It's with the first-year defensive coordinator.
If the defense was struggling, we'd be saying, because it's young and inexperienced. So we'd be going, okay, how about we just keep the guy who turned a bunch of young and inexperienced guys into dogs by the time they were done here. But that's not what happened. In 22, Donovan Peoples, I think is his name. The Michigan running back. I suck with names. I got to be better with names. Edwards, yeah. And he had multiple 70-yard runs. AJ McCarthy threw a pass that was a 75-yard touchdown because Cam Brown, Jim Knowles blitzed on third and long when he probably shouldn't have blitzed on third and long and left his corners on an island. Cam Brown didn't make the tackle, so now it's a touchdown.
Did they know that Jim Knowles was going to blitz on third and long?
Maybe, but also, yeah, probably. I mean, shout out to Connor Stallings. But also, it happened against Penn State where he put Ja'Kalen Johnson on an island by himself and sent the blitz. Parker Washington made one move, and now it's a 75-yard gain. And that's what we're watching. He's doing the same thing in State College right now, leaving these corners on islands when he has no business leaving these corners on islands. And it's one of those situations where if the corner doesn't make a play, it's the difference between a 7-yard gain and a 70-yard touchdown. And it doesn't make him a bad defensive coordinator. This is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is Ohio State is not the place where we should be going, wait until next year when everybody's good. It's the place where you go, new year, time to be good again. You don't rebuild here, you reload. And Jim Knowles' style is to rebuild, which works at Oklahoma State, it works at Cornell, it works at Duke. It doesn't work at Ohio State. And the athletic department at Penn State just showed us it doesn't work at Penn State either.
Yeah, I think part of the Patricia conversation, too, is usage of the guys around you. I don't know. It feels like we heard so much about how Larry Johnson's stuck in his ways. I don't know. Larry Johnson's cooking right now.
He won the Cold War. He won! Hey, Larry, we're going to take your defensive tackles, which I think he's better at defensive tackle development than defensive end development. We're going to take those guys off the field on third down. Cool. I'll see you on first and second down. Hey, Larry, we're going to turn a linebacker into a defensive end. Cool. Are we going to win? Yes. Cool with me. Next week's going to be so fun. We're going to do some Jim Knowles talk and some other things like that. But it didn't dawn on me until it was 100% Matt Patricia. The reason why it was 100% Matt Patricia. And I think if this defense was full of veterans, if they were bringing back 9 out of 11 starters, maybe it'd be 75-25. But you're not. Nobody in Columbus is trying to go through a rebuild. That's not how you do things. I asked somebody that back in the spring in the program. I was like, and we were talking about the quarterback situation. And I was like, hey, man, if you think that Tavian, and it was a hypothetical. This was never going, but this is hypothetical. If you think Tavian St. Clair has the highest ceiling of this bunch, why not Trevor Lawrence this thing and just throw the true freshman out there and like figure it out, even if you think it's going to take some bumps and bruises. And like the response, like I got snapped at. They were like, this is Ohio State, dude. You think JJ and Carnell came here to waste a year to wait on a quarterback to figure it out? What are you talking about? No, there's no rebuilding years here. What are you doing? And I knew I was going to get that in. It was just, we were having conversation, but it's like, what are you doing? Max Clare transferred here to do what he was doing at Purdue? Are you crazy? You can't hire coordinators who you need to take 3 years to figure out the defense. At this point in Ryan Day's tenure. Early in his tenure, when you're growing with a new team, get it. New guy. You can't do that now. Ryan Day's in this stuff and they're winning national championships now. Jordan, in our chat, I'll read this and then we can wrap up with one more thing. To a larger point, I think I can speak for all the fans that if Knowles had returned in 25, we all felt that a hard reset would take place, but that the Texas game showed us how elite Patricia truly is. Yeah, that's what it is. You only gave up 7 points to Texas, and I think Ohio State would have had to win that game 28-24, or 33-30 if Jim Knowles was still here, just simply because it was a bunch of young guys. Let's move on to these last two things. I know I asked it about just quarterback if you place Julian Sand on the 2024 roster, but the overarching point here, if 2025 roster played the 2024 schedule, do they lose based on what we've seen through 7 games?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Tyler in our chat is asking us, I got a better question for you guys in the media. Why did you think that we were going to lose a bunch of games this year with this roster just because they were so young? I didn't think they were going to lose a bunch of games. I still thought their floor was 10-2. It's just maybe they dropped the first one just because it's enough new weapons where, and again, they would have lost the game like 27-24. I'm not saying they would have gotten blown out. And then the Michigan thing's the Michigan game. But those are the only 2 games on the schedule where I was like worried about it. In hindsight, Texas is not very good. I'm still worried about Michigan because it's Michigan. So I
had them going 11-1. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think we would have thought they would have lost a bunch of games. It just wouldn't have looked as clean this quickly as it's looked.
I didn't think this defense was going to be historic. Some of the questions we had were like in the preseason were like, okay, this team, their first road game at Washington, that's a decent Washington team. That's a tough environment. Like we had questions about Julian Sand. It's like, all right, well, what? I didn't really think about like, okay, what if Julian Sand doesn't have to do much? Because I did not think this defense was going to be historic.
That's all it is.
I think the way the defense played against Texas changed my outlook on the season a ton.
Yeah. And it's fine. It's a good thing to be wrong about. If that's where we're wrong, then like we'll eat that. How would 2024 attack 2025, Andrew? I'm gonna have you beat 2024. How would you attack this 2025 defense?
I would try to run the ball. I know.
Newsflash, he's not wrong.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like I know it's funny because it's me. It's just funny because he called on me first. Like I think we all agreed that 24 had the better offensive line. I think we all agreed that 24 had the better running backs. Like you have a mobile quarterback. Like you want to freeze the Arvell Reese of it all. Run the ball and have Will Howard keep that as an option to where Arvell Reese can't just crash every play and Arvell Reese has to read stuff. Make Arvell read stuff. Make him stop and have to and sit there for a second and look. Don't let him just say, "Hey, go attack." Don't do that. Run the ball, get after him. I think the offensive line, you probably should be able to have some success there. Because Ohio State's defensive line depth, I think, is still like a sort of question mark. It's like, hey, what does this look like if you got to get into a game where it's like, third, fourth quarter and a team's running the ball fairly effectively? Can your 3 and 4 and 5 defensive tackles hold up when they have to get a series or two? So I'd run the ball. I'd try to run the ball at them. Defensively, it's kind of the same as it always was. I would just let them run the ball. I would let them run the ball. I would have a lot of defensive backs on the field, and I would say, your running game is not that good. We have a really good defensive line. Come at us. Take it. And I think you would trust the 24 defensive line to beat the 25 offense.
Stefan, how do you attack 2024 if you're 2025?
I would let Arvell Reese get after it. I would trust Kenyatta and Caden Curry to kind of cage Will Howard and limit his mobility. And I would let Arvell Reese try to get after him, and trusting that Davison, Jermaine, Devin Sanchez, Caleb Downs, Jalen McClain, Lorenzo Styles can hold up long enough for Arvell Reese to get home and get some pressure on Will Howard. So I think this, as good as Ohio State's 2024 offense was, this 2025 defense is a force, man. It would be a fun matchup, no doubt. And offensively, I mean, let Julian Sand rip it.
Yeah, if I was 2025, I'm attacking 2024's corners. If I was 2024, I'm attacking the underbelly of 2025. In fact, you know what? If I'm 2024, I'm trying to win the game 17-14. If I'm 2025, I'm trying to win the game 35-27. Last thing, if they played, give a score. Who wins?
This was very hard. So I was kind of debating how I wanted to have this happen with the scores and everything. I picked the 2025 team to win. And I was kind of debating 2020, 27, 24, 21, 20, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't really know. And I was kind of settling on a score. So let's go easy. 25, 25, 2024, 24. They win by 1.
Okay. You're bringing it down to, is Jaden Fielding deciding the game?
No, a 2-point conversion.
Because Jaden Fielding would be the kicker and Joe McGuire would be the punter for both teams. Stefan, pick a score.
Yeah, the special teams will just null and void in terms of this conversation.
Send them home.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like 2024 special teams probably wins because they had Caleb Downs returning punts. So
they also had a kicker miss field goals against Michigan.
That's true. I'll take 2025 to win, and I'll go 17-10. I think everything we've seen so far is, I think Ryan Day would say, hey, let's trust our defense. And I think the 2025 defense would be able to make life difficult for the 2024 offense. So I think it would be not far off from like the Ohio State-Texas game we saw in week 1. So yeah, 17-10, I'll take 2025. I do think the 2025 team is better. And I think one of our texters may have submitted this. It's like, we did these position by position. It winds up pretty equal, but like Arvell, Caleb, Sonny, Caden Curry is a different element of just saying like this defensive line is better. This linebacker room is better. This safety room is better. Like, those 4 guys, the way they're used, changes the entire complexion of that defense, how we talk about these defenses. And on the other side, I think Julian Sand changes the complexion of how you talk about it because of how important quarterback is. So
from the 512, doing the survey, I picked mostly better parts in 2024, but 2025 may be case of some is better in 2025 because of better QB and better defensive coordinator. I think Ohio State's 25 team wins 28-14. And I think the game looks like the Ohio State-Texas Cotton Bowl, where I know they won by 14 points, but the game was played at a much closer margin than that. But I think what it just comes down to is this year's team isn't throwing the ball around the yard as much as we thought they would because they just don't want to do it yet. Last year's team wasn't throwing the ball around the yard a lot because I don't think it was always consistent, right? We had consistent deep ball conversations. It never seemed like Will Howard and Carnell Tate could get on the same page, right? JJ was awesome. They forgot who Emeka Egbuka was for a month there, if you remember, right? This team doesn't necessarily have that problem. It's just more, there's a difference between not doing something because you don't want to do something yet versus not doing something because you're not always sure it's going to be there for you, which is why 3rd and Jeremiah at the end of the year was such a big deal. I mean, think about Will Howard's first throw as a Buckeye in a real game, he threw it 2 inches to Jeremiah Smith and he dropped it. And then his last throw as a Buckeye, he threw it 30 yards down the field and Jeremiah caught it. And I feel like those 2 plays are a snapshot of the story of Ohio State's growth as a passing attack in 2024. There's no need for growth in the passing attack this year. This is, hey, Julian, can you do this? Yeah, I would like to do it more often if you would allow me to do it. There is not a single game during Will Howard's career where he has been a better passer than what we've seen from Julian Sand in the 2 games where they've let him loose against Minnesota and Wisconsin. And he was awesome against Tennessee and Oregon. He has not once ever been on point the way Julian Sand was. And listen, it's a different skill set, right? There's not a single scenario where you would take Julian Sand in a short yardage situation over Will Howard. So it goes both ways. But when you look at the strengths and the weaknesses of both of these teams, I think Ohio State 2025 has less weaknesses. And even if it does have some weaknesses, it has ways to mitigate those weaknesses in a way that I'm not sure 2024 had some inherent flaws, even if it was awesome. I don't think 2025 has inherent flaws. It just has, we'll get there when we get there situation. 350-3315. Brennan has to go, and he is looking at us like, you need to hurry up. And he is right. We just went 90 minutes on this week. Thank you guys who all joined us for the live pod. And if you can't, it'll be in your feeds on a Thursday. But listen, we're trying this every Wednesday. And also we're going to be doing some lives on Saturday. I think we're going to go live after the Penn State game. Even though it's not a big game, it's still a lot to talk about after that game. But 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that for Stefan, Krajisnik, and Andrew Gillis. And producer Brennan, who has to go to class. Talk to you guys later.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.